Funding for this program is brought to you in part by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Rose Martin, and this is Real Life with Susan Harf, our favorite life coach, who gives us tips and strategies and loads of advice for how to navigate those tricky things we get involved in our everyday life. Like you, I can't wait to see what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Rose. I'm so happy to see you, and I'm happy to be with you also. So today we are going to read another letter from a viewer, and this person says, "Dear Susan, my coworker and I applied for the same job. She got the job and now there's tension between us. Our relationship is not the same. What should I do?" So this is tricky, and especially when you're in a situation where you're friends with your coworker. And it prompted me to think about various things, but the first thing I want to say to you, the viewer, is it's a tough situation. I'm sorry that you're in it. I kind of believe that honesty is the best policy here. I think that you need to sit down with your coworker and your friend and tell her how you feel. That's not to say that you need to point the finger at the other person for getting the job. But if you kind of feel, whether it's jealous or sad that you didn't get the job, or if your focus is you believe that you were better qualified than her. There's a number of things that might be going on with you, but I guess that first off, what I would suggest is to have that conversation. And maybe it would be helpful for you if I pretend I'm you and you're her. So I would say, if I were you, can we have a conversation? Can we talk? Do you have some time today? And if she says yes, then at the appointed time, you sit down and you say, you know, I've done a lot of thinking and I'm happy for you and I'm kind of sad for me. And then wait to hear what it is the person responds with. But the notion is that you can be two things at once. You can be happy for someone else and feel a little disappointed for you. And that is okay. When you don't accept the feeling of being disappointed, then you make it not okay, and then you make it about them, which is not what we want to do. Mm-hmm. So my first suggestion is honesty is the best policy. The coworker is going to know how you feel if you're walking around moping, or if you seem to be withholding with your happiness for them. So people know how we feel, regardless of what we say, do, act. They know. And the more they know you, the better they know you, then they really know. So it's okay to be honest and say, you know, I really wanted that job, and it's good that you got it, and I'm happy for you. What you're hearing in my voice, though, is I'm a little sad. It's going to take me time to sort of get over the fact that I didn't get it. I wish there were two jobs, and then we both could have gotten it. Now, I have coached in situations where somebody got the job and the others didn't, and the job was to be their boss.
Yeah, I wondered about that. If it was parallel or if it was a supervisory role, did that matter how you handled it?
So I'm wondering that too. We don't know that in this case. But if, in fact, the person has now jumped from being your peer to your boss, that can be tricky. It is, I'm not gonna say it isn't. It absolutely is difficult to change roles with a coworker. It's difficult for you, who becomes their boss. It's difficult for them to all of a sudden switch from I was your girlfriend, I was your coworker, now you're my boss. Because when someone is supervising another, there is a certain degree of change that occurs, and there's a certain degree of the kind of relationship level that happens when you are someone's supervisor. It does not mean that you can't be close with them. I've been close with most of my bosses and most of the people who've reported to me. But it does mean that there are certain conversations you don't have. One of them is how you feel about the other management.
Right.
There are certain things that you don't discuss when somebody is someone that you are now supervising, or vice versa. But it doesn't mean that you can't still have great feelings about that person.
So if you start the conversation to just open the door, say, I want to talk about this. Now, would you approach it differently if it's a peer or the boss relationship, or would you kind of, as an opening of the door, say, well, let's talk about this so it doesn't get personal, or so I'm not personally, attacking you? Or is that not something you would say to your new boss, to say, well, things are tricky now in our relationship, and how do we navigate this?
I'd plow right through that, and my advice would be to tell the truth and say that regardless of whether the person's your boss or your peer, you can still share your true feelings. The difference becomes if you are now the person who is the boss and you're supervising the other person, your response may not be the same as if you were still peers. So for instance, you may do more listening than talking. You may, because your role is to not only supervise, but to mentor and to mentor appropriate behavior. So for instance, that includes not saying everything you think and feel.
But you're not going to want to flip a switch for someone who was a buddy
Exactly.
of yours, and you're already out socializing and doing things, sharing your life and sharing your families, and then all of a sudden, let's say you are the supervisor, you're not going to all of a sudden be distant and
Exactly.
unapproachable.
Exactly. And so therein lies the difference. You have this modicum of appropriate behavior, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to be warm and kind and friendly and feel very close to the person. You absolutely can still do that. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that is the difference. Is you don't stop that. You don't stop your feelings for this person. You just change. If you're now the supervisor, you change because what they need from you is something different. That doesn't mean that when you go out after work, you're not the very same person.
Right.
However, what you talk about is not the same.
But would it be helpful too, let's say you're in the new supervisory role, to say, we were such a great team, and I want that to continue.
Exactly.
I love your ideas, you're so creative.
Exactly.
And let's just take it to the next level together.
Exactly. Rose, there you go again, being a fabulous life coach, and you're absolutely right. That is exactly what we do.
Okay.
Okay, now, having said all that, so we've talked to you now, our viewer, and others who may have been in this situation. Now I want to just take a step from that and talk about a concept that this letter reminded me of. The concept is, I believe in something called infinite resources of everything good. And what I mean by that is, our ego sometimes believes a myth. And the myth says, more for you is less for me. There's not enough goodness to go around. There's not enough happiness to go around. There's not enough winning to go around. That is a myth. What's really true is infinite resources of everything good. There not only is enough to go around, but if you have something good happen to you, you foster having good things happen to the people around you.
That makes sense, because if something good happens and you're in a good mood, you're conveying that to everyone, whether they're under your charge or not, or colleagues anywhere, even in the grocery store, wherever you go. So I never really thought about that before. Infinite resources are available. What was the end of that? Infinite resources?
Infinite resources of everything good.
Of everything good.
Yeah.
So using that in all facets of your life really can help your outlook and help people around you.
I had a very interesting experience one day about that, about being near somebody who was happy. I was walking on the sidewalk. I was walking in the city and walking on the sidewalk, and as I'm approaching this building, there is a young guy standing outside the building handing out money.
Wow.
I thought it was seen.
I've never seen that before. I can honestly tell you, I haven't been walking down
I
the
thought
street
it was
passing out money.
Yeah, he was passing out money. And he leans over and he goes to give me money. And I said, you know what? I said, I don't know what this is about, but you keep your money or give it to the next person. And he said, I'm a happy guy today. And I said, well, that's fabulous. And I said, so it prompted me to say, how come you're so happy? He said, I just came into this money that I wasn't expecting. And it was from my parents. And I'm not giving it all away, but I'm giving some away right now. And I'd like you to have it. And I don't normally do this, but I said to him, I'm on my way right now to the coffee shop across the street. Would you like to have coffee with me? Something prompted me to say that. And I don't normally pick up strangers on the street.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
I do not do that. I said, you know what? My favorite French pastry shop is right around there, right around the corner. And I'd love it if you join me. And he did. Well, I found out a lot about this guy. And one of the things I found out was, so he came into this money, and he decided that he wasn't really doing enough in his life for other people. He was single. He didn't have a family. He really wasn't intimately involved with, in a giving kind of a way. He wasn't on any boards. He didn't really do a lot of volunteerism. And he said, this is my foyer into that. And while we lived in that particular city, we became friends.
Really?
We became friends. What he did for a living was not what I do, but similar. He was a trainer. Very interesting guy. So the point that I'm making here is his happiness changed my life that day. I made a friend. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be on the subway and pick up the person next to you or just grab everybody you meet and start being friends. But my intuition was good. I knew that this was somebody that I wanted to speak to further. I wanted to find out what was behind what he did. And I think through talking with me, he changed too, because I spoke to him about some boards I was on and ways that he could become more involved in giving.
You know, you brought up a great word of intuition, and I'm thinking to the viewer who wrote to you about the job, and I'm thinking if that intuition and your gut level says, reach out now instead of later. Don't let things fester. Don't let things grow, and just let's heal it and let's move forward.
Now, and on that note, let's say the person got the job and it's not the same organization that you two have been working in together. Well, now you have a contact. You've got a contact in a new organization, a new corporation, whatever it is, that you didn't have before because your friend got a job there. You may not have known anybody who worked there before, and now you do.
You're right, because we assumed it was the same organization.
And it may not be.
And it may not be.
So now you got a contact. If you and I are going for the same guy, and he dates you and not me, maybe he's got a brother. So it's always infinite resources of everything good. It's not you got the guy and I didn't, you got the job and I didn't, you won, I lost. There's no winning and losing. We're all here not only to be winners, but we're here to foster each other's win. So I'll tell you another story. One time I was coaching a gentleman who owned an antique shop. And he comes to me one day and he says, bad news. I just found out that there's another antique shop going in right next door to me. There was a vacant store available. This guy got it. I don't know why he wants to be next door to me, but he was on the other side of town before. Now he's going to be right next to me. I said, okay, let's back up for a minute and think about what you just told me. He was on the other side of town. Correct. I said, well, probably he has a following, just like you have a following of people who come to your antique shop all the time, right? Right. So the people on the other side of town don't necessarily know about your antique shop, but guess what? They're going to know about you now because they're going to come to see him. Do you think if somebody's in an antiquing mood that they are going to only go to his shop and skip yours? Oh no. Your business is going to double because they're now going to go to the shop that they always went to. They want to see where he moved. You know, he's going to be advertising that he moved to a different part of town. They're going to come see him, and they're going to come see you too.
Yeah, what a benefit for both. Again, the unlimited resources. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the same way, I think about this relative to relationships. So I've coached a lot of people who are in second relationships. They're divorced, and now they're moving into another relationship or another marriage. And what I find happens often, too often, is people believe that they are in competition with the former ex.
Yeah,
with,
I
excuse
think
me,
that,
with the
yeah,
ex, the
yeah,
former,
yeah.
the former
Spouse.
wife, the former spouse. And what I'm here to say is the opposite is true. If the person that you are with, let's say you are married for the second time, and so is your husband, let's say he has a better relationship with his ex. Let's say he has a good relationship than he did when he was married to her, or it's evolved into at least a cordial relationship. If he heals with that person, he's coming to you then in a healed way. That means he's going to be better for you. So when he says to you, I got to go over there and fix her washer, or I got to help her, she's on the side of the road and she's got a flat tire, or she called me and one of the children needs me and they need me right now, you say, dinner can wait, you go help her. Because not only can she be your sister instead of your adversary, and should be your sister instead, but you've been that person. And that's the other thing that I want people to realize is we have all been on the other side of, I don't feel like a winner right now. I feel like the loser. We've all been there. We've all been in a situation where we didn't get the job, or we didn't get the guy, or we thought that somebody was going to be competing with us in our line of work or in our career, or there was somebody, God forbid, better. That's not terrible. That person who's better is going to help you grow and learn to be better yourself. One of my closest friends is somebody who, when I started giving coaching advice on television, I actually started in radio, as you know, and she was in radio also on a different station. And we were doing similar work. And I wanted to be friends with her, and I started pursuing her. And at first, she was kind of wondering, how come? And we not only became good friends, but we love each other. We are very close. And so the fact is that I learned a lot from her. So the point is that it's never about good for me, bad for you, winning, losing. We can all, and we should, be committed to everybody's success. So in other words, there's always an equation. There's always a system. It's never, we're not operating alone out here. No one is operating alone. We are all standing on the shoulders of people who helped us. And that's what we need to think about all day long, because when we're in any system, when we are in the organizational system, in other words, the organization that we work for, when we're in our family system, we work for them too. When we are in the system of our friends, even when we're in a grocery store and we're in a system of two people, meaning you and the cashier, you're in a system. It's not just you there. You are having an interaction for that moment. That system may just be together for 5 minutes, but we're always part of a group. And if we're committed to the success of everyone in the group, we will not only have more success for ourselves, but we will exude success, which breeds happiness and success for everybody in the system. That's the way it really works.
Yeah, and it's really amazing, and it sounds great, but when you're wounded and you're feeling raw right now because you're low and you didn't get the job or you didn't get the guy, and you want to bring yourself up to that happiness quotient, do you think that by making that first step with that coworker, that helps you get there instead of turning around and burying your head in the sand? Or what's the specific path we take?
Great question. I love that question, because there is a path, and here's what it is. When we behave in a vulnerable way with whoever it is, we are more approachable. And when we're more approachable, it makes people want to confide in us. So instead of acting like, I don't care, doesn't bother me, I didn't really want that job, that is ridiculous, because it's not the truth, and they know it. And not just because they're going to know the truth, but because it matters. So what I would tend to do, and what I would advise our viewers to do, is to say, I don't feel so great right now. I got to tell you the truth. I really wanted this. Can we talk about it? Number one. And number two, you don't always have to go the distance to talking about it with that same person. So I do believe in being vulnerable with them. I believe in being honest with them. I believe that always, the truth and vulnerability always is the win for me. I believe that that always gets you where you need to go. But in addition to that, there are some times when it's not appropriate to really spill your entire guts. Because, for instance, that person now may be your boss, or because, not that, and that's not to say that you have to act perfectly with them. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm suggesting it just may not be appropriate to lay that on them. Mm-hmm. But there are times when you have feelings that you need to express that you can't or won't express with the person with whom the feelings lie. So, for instance, there are times when you may be upset with your child, and depending on the age of the child, you may choose to not divulge everything that you think or feel because it may not be appropriate for them. It may not be what they need to hear. And there, I do have specific examples, but I don't want to get into a whole other story with it because it's a whole other subject. But the point is that sometimes it's not appropriate to give the entire story of why you feel badly. So for instance, a quick example. Let's say you wanted this job, not just because you think you were appropriate for the job, but because you're in a terrible financial situation and this job would have helped you out of it. That really is that's not the other person's business. That's really laying something on them that's not appropriate. So if you were to say to them, I really wanted the job and I'm kind of feeling badly that I didn't get it. I'm happy for you, but I'm just sort of wounded right now. I just want you to know how I feel and I don't expect you to do anything with it. That's different than I can't pay my gas bill and I don't know what I'm going to do and I really needed this job and I needed it to come through for me and now you got it. Okay, that is not appropriate. You don't need to lay that on them. They didn't get you in that situation, you did. So in other words, there are things that you share and some that you don't, but the vulnerability piece, I say go for it. I say absolutely. That is the way that you deal with the feelings that you have, because not only when you're vulnerable with the other person does that help your relationship, it helps you. When you are honest with yourself and the other person about how you really feel, that's what helps you to move past it. When you say, no skin off my back, that didn't hurt me at all, I don't care, I don't want that job, that place is a lousy place to work, I didn't even want, no. That's not going to help you move forward. So what will help you, in answer to your question, how do you move forward? How do you deal with the hurt feelings? You feel hurt. That's for starters, unfortunately. You feel the pain. And then you share that. You share it with the person that deserves to hear it. And then you may share it with somebody else who may be your close friend or your spouse or somebody who is really going to help you feel better. When we are hurting, we need to be around people who say, you're really good in some form or another. Mm-hmm. You will get another job. What I usually believe is that if the train isn't stopping at your station, it wasn't your train. So I believe when you didn't get the guy or you didn't get the job or whatever you thought you wanted to happen didn't happen, I believe it wasn't meant to happen. I am a fatalist. I believe that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. So I believe when you didn't get it, that's okay. That's not the same thing, though, as I didn't even want to work for them. That's not the same thing. But it helps you move through to know that you're not the only one in charge here.
Well, what I'm also getting from you is that you have to live with the pain for a second, live with being wounded, deal with it with the people who are involved in a way that's respectful and has boundaries around it by not spilling everything. And by the same token, you don't need to tell everybody in the whole workplace and all your neighbors about the situation, because that's not appropriate. So it's figuring out where it is appropriate, where it isn't, but dealing with it and moving on, because there's enough for everybody.
That's exactly right. That's the whole point. There's enough for everybody. And unfortunately, our egos get in the way sometimes because our ego is based on fear. And so that fear that we have of I didn't get this job extends all of a sudden to I'm not going to get any job. When you feel like there's not enough to go around, understand that you're afraid. That's what's driving you. And so what you want to move is, you want to move from, where you want to move is, you want to move from fear to love, fear to acceptance, fear to happiness, fear to success for all concerned in the system.
That's great. So to our viewer who wrote in to say, you know, my colleague got the job and I didn't, I'm feeling bad about it, we've given some really great strategies and advice for how he or she can navigate that. But I think the other great thing you did, Susan, was you took us through any other situation in our life that we can realize if it's not your train, it's not meant for you, let it pass by, and that we're going to be okay because the world is a place of goodness and happiness and there's enough for everybody.
It's true.
All righty. Gosh, thanks so much for joining us. And for Susan Harf and Real Life, we'll see you next time. Thanks for reaching out.